Good afternoon, dear viewers of Civic Space TV. Welcome to yet another episode of the Youth Roundtable. As usual, each passing week we get better with better information and more exciting content. This afternoon, we are flashing a light on the International Youth Day, which is celebrated every year on the 12th of August. And this year, the United Nations, through its agency, FAO, decided that the theme for the celebration of the International Youth Day is going to be on transforming food systems, but particularly looking at youth innovations to improve human and planetary health. There has been a recognition that in the next 30 years, the population of the world is likely to increase by 2 billion. That level of pressure exerted on the planet will require more than just producing more healthier food. There's therefore need in transforming food systems to include aspects like biodiversity protection, like restoration of the environment, among others. This afternoon, to digest this topic and flash a light on where Uganda is in this, is a very wide-ranging panel, and I'm just going to start from my left here. We are joined by Ivan Bwowe, a common face on this space. Bwowe is a lawyer, and he says he's a farmer by choice. Bwowe, nice to see you.
It's a pleasure being on the show again. I am Bwowe Ivan, as earlier introduced. I am a lawyer by profession. I am passionate about youth affairs, but I am a farmer by choice.
Thank you very much. We shall find out whether you're a real farmer or a fridge farmer. And next to him, we are privileged as the Youth Roundtable to for the first time, host a youth member of parliament on this platform. Who better to speak about youth issues than a youth member of parliament? Honorable Odoi Benard, welcome. Do you come from Tororo this morning?
Well, I came from Tororo yesterday because I had to come on time and attend this show. Thank you so much, our host, Mr. Matanda. Once again, my name is Benard Odoi Onen. Apart from legislation, I'm also a garbage collector, and I do a lot in recycling, which has direct effect on our environment. This is my maiden appearance here, and very much obliged to be part of this conversation. Thank you.
Yes, we are honored to have you on the show, and indeed the area of garbage collection, you're going to show us where the link is between that and food systems. And next to Honorable is Mutesi Oliver, another common face in these spaces. Oliver is a senior youth leader, and I don't know yet where you are nowadays. You're going to tell us what are you doing nowadays. Oliver, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, my brother, and I welcome you all to this show. As earlier introduced, I'm Oliver Mutesi, a senior youth leader. I should be now called a senior youth. Yes, and you asked me where I am right now. I am completing my second master's in gender, so I'm a gender advocate.
Isn't that like the third master's or something?
And also, I am now investing in business. I am in IT solutions, and I want to employ young girls, young females, to join business. And I'm also a farmer because in Uganda, you realize that agriculture, when we were in P3, we used to sing it. Agriculture is a backbone of Uganda. So by default, you find yourself becoming a farmer. So me, I'm in goat rearing and cows. So I'm a farmer, right? So I'm so glad that we are having these discussions in such spaces, because I'm sorry if I'm going overboard, but if we are to maintain our being a food hub in the East African in the Horn of Africa, we actually have to, as young people, being the biggest population, we need to start talking about this and encouraging ourselves to do this, because we cannot be the biggest majority, yet the old ones are the ones who are going to be farming for us. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. We shall also hear whether in your business you're contributing to the value chain by supporting our farmers. Someone whispered to me that farmers are highly exploited by middlemen and middlewomen. So I hope you're not one of them. Next to Oliver is Sserubiri Africa Uhuru. Do you still have the Joseph name? You'll tell us. But Sserubiri is the CEO, powerful positions, of Cabral Tech Ltd, a company that majors in innovations and ICT solutions for agriculture. Is it agriculture only? He's going to tell us. It's a pleasure to have you, sir.
Okay, thank you, my brother Matanda. I'm privileged to be here, especially when Matanda invited me. At first I was hesitant because I told him I'm not yet ready to have public conversations on my views and opinions. So sometimes I choose to first keep them to myself, maybe till further notice. But then the theme of the International Youth Day was an interesting theme, and so I thought maybe it would be a privilege for me to maybe share my ideas and maybe some views on what I think is the way forward for if we are to transform the agriculture sector to ensure food security for the ever-growing population in sub-Saharan Africa. So as my brother introduced me, I'm Sserubiri Uhuru, the founding CEO of Cabral Tech Ltd. I am an evangelist of technology because I believe we are blessed to live in this age, because we have an opportunity to take advantage of technology to be able to transform the African economy. So at the moment it's projected that the African internet economy will grow to $180 billion in 2025. And then it's projected that it will reach $712 billion in 2050. So I believe that's an opportunity for especially the young generation to take advantage of these technology tools that have emerged to be able to deal with some of the challenges that we face as a country and as a continent. So that's where I derive my evangelism for technology from. So to be interesting for me to share my views with the other youth leaders.
Thank you very much, Uhuru. We are honored. We are glad that you have accepted to share some of the views that you'd otherwise keep to yourself with us. Nuwagaba Patricia. Nuwagaba Patricia is an agronomist. I don't even know what that means. We are going to learn. And Nuwagaba runs an initiative, Spark Agro Innovations. She's going to tell us more about that. But contrary to what many people think, that youth are not in agriculture, Patricia is here to show us that the convention is different, or maybe confirm that actually that's the place. Patricia, it's an honor to have you.
Thank you so much, the host of this show. I'm so privileged to be here for my very first time. As earlier introduced, I'm Nuwagaba Patricia, an agronomist from Spark Agro Initiatives Africa. It is majorly an agriculture consultancy company that deals mainly in making sure that our farmers have the information that they need and linking them to these markets. It is a youth-led company, meaning we want to make sure that at least the youth are engaged in agriculture, and we see how to bridge this gap of food security and how to innovate to make sure that we have enough food for the ever-growing population in our country and the globe at large.
Thank you, Patricia. So I'm going to run right away to Mr. Sserubiri. As some of the politicians here will tell you, we are used to International Youth Day themes being about political things, democracy, human rights. Some of us enjoy those conversations. But this time around, the United Nations decides to throw us on the deep end with food systems. And so I can tell you I had struggles understanding that theme, and I can imagine if I had struggles as a lawyer, what was happening to some of our people. Food systems, transforming food systems, and then youth innovations to improve human and planetary health. What does this mean? What is this theme talking about?
Okay, thank you so much. Well, when we talk about food systems, basically we are talking about agriculture, because we know that food, it's agriculture that gives us food. And so we are basically talking about the agricultural sector. So we are talking about how do we transform the agricultural sector, taking advantage of all those innovations that are coming from the youth. How do we ensure food security for the ever-growing global population? As you said, that it's projected that the global population will increase by 2 billion. And then when you come to the African continent, it's projected that between 2020 to 2050, we shall be 2.5 billion Africans residing on this continent. So then now that brings the conversation on how are we going to be able to sustain that ever-growing population? How are we going to ensure that we have food every single day? So now that's where the whole idea of transforming food systems comes from. So we look at how can we take advantage of the innovations. And by innovations in my context, I'm looking at how do we take advantage of the digital tools that have emerged? How do we take advantage of all these tools that are being developed by young people in Africa so we can be able to transform food systems and ensure food security? Now, to bring the agriculture sector in perspective and the historical context, one, the agriculture sector, I can say, was one of the earliest innovations that were given to mankind by women, because it's women who started organized agriculture. As men were doing hunting, then the women tried to come up with a way of sustainably produce food. And so with organized agriculture, that was the start of human civilization. And so agriculture becomes one of the most important sectors for man. So because at the end of the day, yes, we can decide to go back to the primordial state and we don't have clothes. We can decide to go back to primordial state and live without phones and live without all these gadgets. But we can never decide not to have food. So it's like it's at the heart of our survival as humans. And so that makes it the most important sector. But what is interesting is that even though we all appreciate that agriculture is important, it's a sector that is most neglected. And that doesn't only apply actually in Uganda and in Africa, it's actually global. When you look at, for example, the total credit financing that goes to agriculture globally, it's 3.5% of the total credit globally. Only 3.5% goes to agriculture. So when you look at even investment in agriculture, venture capital, when investors are investing in the agriculture sector, you find that, for example, in 2019, of the venture capital, the total venture capital of $281 billion globally, only $2.8 billion went to agriculture, which is just 1%. So that shows that it's not actually only in Uganda, not only in Africa, but globally. And those are the conversations that must happen at the United Nations. Those are the conversations that must happen in World Bank, in all these institutions that are ensuring that at the end of the day, we have a safer future. So it must be a global conversation. How can we neglect a sector that we cannot go away with, that ensures that every single day we live? So then even when you bring it here home, you look at the agricultural sector, from the budgeting to credit accessibility, you find that it's a sector that as if it comes as a by the way. And yet every single day we had breakfast, we had lunch, we are going to have supper. So at the end of the day, every single day, we see the relevance of agriculture. And so for me, this theme becomes very fundamental, especially at this material time when we are having a population boom, especially in Africa. So it comes at a time when we must have these conversations at every level, from the village level to the district level, to the national level, to the continental level. We must have this conversation on how do we ensure we improve agricultural productivity, and then, as the theme was set, how do we take advantage of all these innovations that are coming from every corner of the world such that we can improve food systems?
Thank you. That was quite passionate and informative. But I now go to, because you have painted a picture that the agriculture sector, we can now use that term, you have liberated us from food systems, is one of the most neglected. Yet I see Spark Agro initiatives here in that space. So Patricia maybe can tell us, why did you decide to go to a neglected sector? And what does this theme for the International Youth Day mean for Spark Agro initiatives?
Thank you so much. To me, I'm sorry if I will offend any of you here, but they say once in a while you need a doctor, Once in a while you need a lawyer, but you need a farmer 3 times a day. That is, you have to eat some breakfast, you have to take lunch, you have to take supper, or at least twice a day. That means as the youth, we are the biggest percentage of the population in the country, yet we are not participating in the biggest sector that needs us to be alive, that is the food. So as Spark Agro Initiatives Africa, as I earlier said, it is a youth-led. It came in to bridge that gap, to make sure at least the youth take part in agriculture, to make sure at least there is enough food to maintain the food security of the country. There is enough food to help supply the ever-growing population of the country. So to me, it is a neglected sector, that is right, because very few people are there, but it is our role as the youth, it is our role as the energetic part of the population to make sure that the sector grows, because without it, maybe we will not live, because we need the food to live. So to me, we need to make sure that maybe the different stakeholders, that is the government and the other partners, help us in these different innovations to tackle the problems that are affecting the food system. Say the climate change, it is very, very much affecting the food systems. So we need to bring up these innovations, say how certain projects in agriculture interact with each other to reduce on the climate change effects. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll now run to Ivan Bwowe, just next to me. The two, of course, are in the agriculture sector, so I don't expect anything less of the advocacy they are doing. They have ably shown us the relevance of the sector. They have convinced us on how we eat 3 times a day. And I'm just wondering, from an economics perspective, I know that the market is determined by forces of demand and supply. And if indeed we eat 3 times a day, that would mean the demand for food is there. So rather than just make an appeal to stakeholders, let's go into this sector is needed. Why is it that the market has not made food systems or the agriculture sector relevant just by the forces of demand and supply?
I think that is not necessarily true, because you realize that even in the worst circumstances that we've gone through with the COVID pandemic and all that, there is actually no justification to show that food consumption has reduced. It is just that some have found it hard to access food. But in terms of consumption, because what you eat on a day, that has not changed. We saw some little bit of decline in consumption of foodstuffs, but that was because of the circumstances. So, but to me, when it comes to food systems, it is deeper. To me, food systems generally means everything that we do that affects agriculture, directly or indirectly. It has to do with land. It has to do with issues of gender, who participates in what, why men do not participate. Actually, in terms of in the agriculture system, in the agriculture sector, we see more women participating in it. And what is the scale? It's subsistence to feed the homes. All those things matter. So it's about the land policies. It's about serious politics of where government chooses to invest. So to me, whereas you said initially that we usually talk about politics, this is actually actual politics. Because it's even politics that extends to the survival of humankind. And if we do not address the issue of food systems and leverage on the very many innovations that are coming forth, I think we shall perish. I think we shall perish. we have seen that actually people can use an acre to produce particular amounts of food to reduce on the carbon footprint. Many of our colleagues that are in that side of livestock farming and all that. So the agricultural systems are political, but also they speak to our daily lives. How much have they appropriated? How is our land tenure, in a way, supporting the agriculture activities? How do we transition from subsistence to commercial? But even then, how do we ensure that actually that food is available to persons? Because we can transform, and I want to tell the viewers that we can ably transform our agriculture industry from subsistence to commercial farming. But we can also do that when we are dealing with cash crops. Like, let's say cotton, you cannot eat it. But we can also transform from subsistence to commercial when we are exporting. So this area is both political and is about human survival.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I'll be coming back to you to throw back the questions you have been posing to you, because I had prepared some of them for you. But I'll now go to Honorable Odoi. Honorable Odoi, you wear many hats. You're a lawyer, you're in business, and you're now a legislator. So I'll be dealing with the different aspects of you. But for now, let me speak to the business man in you and say, well, the colleagues who have come before have painted a very good case. Ivan has even suggested that the demand for agricultural products is a given, even during a pandemic, has not gone down. But where I am, I still think that the agricultural sector still does not make so much sense. Maybe that's why the average age of the participants in Uganda is over 54, meaning the young ones are not going into agriculture. So as a business person, you're actually in garbage collection. Why didn't you go into goat rearing or growing vegetables? Or what's the issue with the structure of our food systems that it's only the older people who seem to be attracted to it?
Thank you so much, Ndugu Matanda. Well, I want to first bring a bit of preamble to the whole food system. For me, the definition of food system is includes food production, animal production, fish industry, the aquatic industry, wholesomely. Now, as a country, the latest FAO report confirms that by and large, over 80% of our population have access to food. And the 12 or 15% that does not have access to food, in terms of food security, they are chronically insecure. They are mostly found in urban centers. And this has been, of course, because of the much rural-urban migration, that most of our young people who are energetic, who ought to embrace farming, are now running from the villages to urban centers.
Yeah. Exactly.
In search for what we believe, what they think is perhaps greener pasture. There should be a deliberate effort to speak to our generation, to speak to the young people, that if we embrace agriculture, we can actually earn so much from it. Now, the 85% of our population who have access to food can ordinarily afford 3 meals a day. Now, the biggest challenge here is that most of the production of this food is through subsistence. We have not embraced mass production, commercial farming. Now, it is also a fact that Uganda gifted by nature is still the food basket of East Africa. That is why when our neighbors blocked the entry point to Rwanda, we have been reading and we've experienced this in our markets. A lot of our matoke, a lot of our production of food is going into waste because the would-be market at our neighborhood in Kigali is now blocked. Now, the reason why the bigger percentage of the people involved in farming, like you said, is over 50 years and above, are reasons because, one, the young people have not been given this information. And I want to ask my sister of Spark Agro Initiative to embrace this, and as a team, we take this information. There's a deliberate need to go to where our people are, especially the young people, and speak to them and train them and guide them. We need to give them facilities. Government has come up with some programs like NADS, but it has helped, but not wholesomely. Most of our people are given these incentives, but before training. Someone is given a Frisian cow, someone is given a heifer, someone is given poultry, but without any prior training that this is what you need in order for you to have commercial production from this heifer. So the continuity is not there. When our young people are given these incentives, they interpret it more or less as a political gift. And this has also been excavated by the fact that our young people are not embraced. It is until when it is time for politics that leadership, that government, in most cases, gets down to the young people. So our young people are left without seniors to guide them. Policies does not favor them so much. Well, we have a bit of maybe youth fund, a bit of money meant for the young people. But also the requirements for a young person who lives in Bududa, who lives in Kasese, who lives in Gulu, to go and successfully apply and get the money from the banks. The requirements are above reach. They cannot. So you find that in most cases, it is again the sons and daughters of the privileged who have like land title, because some of the requirements maybe a title or something for you to get a credit facility. So whereas our young people have the energy that would transform the agricultural production, we as a country have not done much to support them, to access finances. We have not helped to train them. There is a need for government to establish deliberate training centers at sub-regional level, then later maybe at district level. We have people like CDOs at sub-counties and at district level. These people should be taken to agricultural training schools so that when they go back to their areas of work, they have the skills, they have the knowledge to train our people. Can give you also an example of Emioga. Very good project in idea, very good project in words, but a lot of our people have not received this. It requires training. People get this money, they don't know where to put it. Someone will get money. I've seen Matanda from Kampala who can afford a phone of 1 million. They also want to buy that. The other reason is access to ICT services. We as a country must embrace the notion of taking ICT services to the local person wherever they are.
This is trend coming from a youth member of parliament in a parliament that just passed a tax last month of 12% on data.
But between you and me, Council, with due respect, you know that this is a new parliament. Whatever has been passed was passed by the former parliament, the 10th parliament. So you cannot transfer that friction to the 11th Parliament.
We actually can. You have inherited an institution and you inherit it with its assets and liabilities. Have to use that language. Because we have not had the 11th Parliament coming out to say, you know what, we are starting with correcting the mistakes of the previous Parliament. So it seems it's okay.
No, you can't also just rush into something. There's need for us to study. Such conversations is where we wholesomely get ideas and then try and change the policy framework of the Parliament. So I believe as a new team, I think ours will be very deliberate, that whatever is against the development of the young people, from especially subsistence, farming, agriculture, and this should cut across. We should be very deliberate in formulation of policies that affect our local people. Our population is ready to work, but we need to protect them.
Thank you. I'm going to come back to you. I needed to hear more from the businessman in you, but being in Parliament, I heard from the politician more, and I like the angle you have taken. It may protect you from some of the fire I had prepared. But allow me now go to Mutesi Oliver, who is a senior youth leader. Honorable Odoi seems to say, whereas we can blame the youthful population for not going into agriculture, he seems to blame the society for not doing enough to create avenues for this to happen. And I know that this country has a history of structures like cooperatives. I know that many young people, you were in the National Youth Council, and structures like the National Youth Council, established way back in 1993, were meant to ensure youth have a fair share of what he's talking about. And I usually hear youth talking about circles and groups. Sometimes even here in Kampala, if you drive around, you see posters in Katwe of groups of young people coming up with different initiatives and getting money. So as a senior youth leader, why is it that in spite of all those initiatives, in spite of our history of running successful cooperatives, it has not yielded? Youth, Honorable here is telling us, still have a raw deal.
Thank you so much. Once again, I am Mutesi Oliver. I should qualify to call myself a senior youth leader, senior youth. I'll start with the laws. We have laws that they are not, I should call them, there is a mismatch of laws that what the law says is actually different from what is on ground. We have the land laws. Most cases, I'll talk about the women perspective because I'm a young woman and I am a youth and I am a woman. We have the biggest population of the youth, that's number one. But the youth, within the youth, we have women. They're the biggest population. But the biggest population actually does not own means of production. So this biggest population is the one that goes ahead and participates in subsistence to look after the family. But again, doesn't own these means of production. I'll give an example. I'll talk about, I was a young person when I was in a youth leadership. We would meet these young girls, women who are mothers, most of them. They'll tell you, I cultivated this. When time came for me to sell and look after my family, the man came, beat me, took the money, and drank it. So, how do you expect this young person to benefit from this agriculture? And even they will even see it as a curse. I'm sorry to say, but young people in Uganda think agriculture is a curse. And when you tell someone I'm in agriculture, like, what happened to you? Everyone will think, I'm sorry to speak in Uganda, but people think and see akulema. Like, you know, you have to first, the world has to first be hard on you. You go in agriculture.
I was shocked when the lawyer here told me that he's a farmer by choice.
That perception about farming. So young people down there, they think you have to first have, the world has first to fail you. You have to be a failure for you to go in agriculture.
But maybe that's the case. If I can give you some perspective. Last week I was seeing farmers in Western Uganda crying with bunches of matoke. So if a young person sees such a sight, isn't that a curse? Are they imagining this, or is it the reality on ground?
So that's why I'm telling you that our laws, There are actually, we have policies that are a mismatch. That the reality is, Uganda is a agriculture country, right? Our backbone is agriculture. Way back
Maybe
from
you can help us also break that down. What does it mean? Because when I look at the contribution to the GDP, agriculture is not the biggest. So what do we mean? A young person out there would like to understand. When you say agriculture is the backbone, what backbone?
So initially, our budget, most of our biggest budget used to come from agriculture, like agricultural products. In East Africa, we are the food hub. Remember when we used to, we supply food to Sudan, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, even still now. In Sudan, remember when the Sudanese had a war, you realize people are crying and said we can no longer get food. Our neighbors, most of them, whenever there is a problem, they get issues when they can't get food from Uganda. So it makes us a food hub. So we should, as a country, we should focus on that. And how do we improve this system of agriculture to make sure that even the young people, we shouldn't be having young people on streets looking for jobs when we are a food hub, that we are the biggest exporters of food in this Horn of Africa, that everyone who comes to Uganda feels like, I don't want to live because you have food. I had a Ghanaian friend who loves coming here only to be around and eat our food. That is a blessing. So us as legislators, as young people in leadership, we should look up to making the agriculture a good investment, other than seeing it as a curse that you have to first fail the world and go back and dig. Secondly, as government, we also need to put sweeteners. I don't know how you understand sweeteners on this agriculture, that young person will feel intrigued to come and do what, and it participates. Someone will be at university and say, I'm getting done with my degree in IT, but I want to go and apply my IT in agriculture. For example, if a young person can manage to get $1 million in their agriculture a month, there is no way they want to come to Kampala, get that 1 million, pay rent, pay transport funds, and again they don't save. If their person can be in the village and they can still save their money, trust me, they will love this agriculture. We have investors. Investors come here, they give them free land, they give them tax holidays. But our young people, we cannot even give the young people land. We have so many people on the streets, Chisenyi. Why can't we get land and say, Namamve, you're giving them this land, you go and do maize. At the end of the month, government comes and buys it from you. We have prisons, we have schools, we have we have so many people who consume food on a daily. So if we say that we are giving young people land here, you go and do your maize. At the end of the season, government is going to buy that maize from you and gives you your money. Trust me, these young people will not be on these borders that break their legs every day.
Are you calling us to go socialist? We are in a liberal market economy where demand and supply rules the market. So you're asking government to come and purchase, and the businessmen here will complain that the ground is not leveled.
They say that desperate situations call for desperate what? The solutions. That we have a flooding number of young people on streets. We are having crime rate increasing every day because young people they have to live, they have to buy. Someone has to buy a cloth, they have to buy a shoe. We are not even talking about phones. Those are what? Those are luxuries. We are talking about essential needs where someone has to eat, but they cannot have a coin in their pocket. And that's why you have pickpocketers. Yeah. We have people snatching phones from people at what is it called? Clock tower, and everywhere they are hitting you with iron bars because someone has to survive by all means. So we are in a desperate situation. So we need to call for desperate solutions. So we are saying that government should come up, just like the way it gives tax holidays to these Chinese who come. Why doesn't it give tax holidays to young people in the agricultural sector? Why doesn't it give them land? Why doesn't it give tractors and say that these young people of Chisenyi B or Tororo Village A, we are giving you this land, come and start digging. When you produce, government is going to come and buy your things, give you your money. At the end of the day, there is no way these young people are going to come and start being on these borders.
Okay. Thank you, Oliver. This will now bring me back to you, Mr. Sserubiri. You gave us a bit of history of the agriculture sector and gave us an understanding of the relevance and really demonstrated that it's inevitable, a sort of an existential crisis. But I want now to bring those historical and analytical tools to Uganda for you to help us understand where we are as a country in terms of food systems. Are our food systems still, in trying to understand that theme, I came across some information and categorizations of food systems as either being traditional or modern or intermediate. Where are we? Are we still traditional? Are we modern? Are we intermediate? There are now initiatives like Spark Agro initiatives. How far have these gone in transforming our food systems? Before we maybe go to how we can change them, but just a light on where we are today.
Okay, thank you, and also thank you the panelists for the ideas shared and then the information also shared. We're looking at Uganda. I would maybe comment briefly on the issue that has emerged on why young people have not gone into agriculture. You see, at the end of the day, you should ask, why should young people go into agriculture? Because you see, you talk about the average age of a Ugandan farmer being 54, and those are our parents, and maybe because they have no way out, like they have no alternative. So maybe if you provided them with an alternative, they'll be coming to Nakasero to sell tomatoes. But because maybe there is no alternative, so they keep in agriculture as a way to survive. So that's why research shows that over 68% are subsistence, growing food to eat. If you gave them an alternative of how they can get food, maybe they will leave agriculture. So you should ask, why should a graduate go into farming? So if, for example, if I grow an acre of maize, and after 3 months, I can only get 1 million or 2 million, and yet I've invested, say, 1 million, I ask, is 1 million worth getting as a profit after 3 months of labor? So then I will do cost-benefit analysis and say, if I sell this land, get a border, and then I can be able to make 20K per day. So I do cost-benefit analysis. I say, okay, agriculture is not worth my time. So the question should be, why are young people not going into agriculture? Because young people need money. So young people are getting exposed because of internet, and so they know what is happening all over the world, and so they also need those things. If a young person watches on YouTube and there are some young people somewhere having smartphones of 1 million, they also want a smartphone of 1 million. So the question is, where can I get 1 million to buy a smartphone? So even their needs have changed. And if their needs are changing and their lifestyle is becoming expensive, definitely they will invest where they can get higher return on investment. So the question should be, why are young people not going into agriculture? Because even if you go and do sensitization, join agriculture, it's good, we shall do cost-benefit analysis at the end of the day. So at the end of the day, you have to fix the structural problems that are preventing young people from joining agriculture, and you won't need to do sensitization. Because if I see Matanda making $1 billion from growing onions, then Honorable Benard getting $2 billion from growing tomatoes, trust me, I'll be on the market buying seeds to grow onions, because I also want $1 billion. So, so if you fix the structural issues, the structural challenges that these parents of ours are facing while they are doing agriculture, definitely we shall go into agriculture. So, to give the context of agriculture in Uganda, one, it's estimated we have 8.8 million farmers in Uganda. And out of the 8.8 million, over 83% are smallholder farmers having 1.5 acres of land. Now, 8.8 million, 83% are smallholder farmers, and out of those smallholder farmers, over 68% are doing subsistence. So now, the percentage of farmers who are doing farming as a business, those the medium and the large, are just 17%. And so those are the ones who are contributing to the export earnings, but the majority are simply growing to eat. And then now let us now go to the smallholder farmers. What are their realities? What are the challenges they face? Its research shows that only 28% is realized as yields by those smallholder farmers. For example, if I grow an acre of maize, to put it in perspective, and the ideal yield for 1 acre of maize is 10 tons, then you only get 2.8 tons. That's the average earned by Ugandan farmers. So that shows that if I read on internet, on Google, and like if you grow 1 acre of maize, you are going to get 10 tons of maize, the reality on the ground is that you get 2.8 tons. Why is the situation like that? Because of the structural problems. Because farmers are finding it hard to access credit. Only 20% is estimated by FAO. Only 20% of smallholder farmers have access to formal finance. And now the recent publication by Bank of Uganda shows that only 12.8% of the total credit in Uganda goes to the agricultural sector. Even when we call it the backbone, of course it makes sense to call it the backbone actually, because we don't only look at GDP contribution, but we also look at the contribution to the welfare of the population. And since agriculture employs the biggest majority of our people, it's logical to call it the backbone of Uganda's economy, because an economy is not just GDP. So the sector that is the backbone of the Uganda's economy takes only 12.8% of the total credit in the economy. Now, to do for you the comparison, the service sector takes 52% of the total credit. But what is the percentage employed by the service sector? When you look at the growth of the total credit, in the past 10 years, we have just had 6% growth, from 6.7% 10 years ago to now 12.8%. But then compare with the growth in the service sector. So you'll see that it becomes very hard for these farmers to access credit, so they are able to have resources to invest in improved seeds, to invest in fertilizers, to invest in mechanized agriculture, so they can boost the productivity from 2.8 tons of maize generated from 1 acre to maybe 7 tons. And also research shows that we have the lowest consumption of fertilizers. 1 kilogram per hectare. That's the fertilizer consumption in Uganda. Even Burundi has higher, because it has 2.5 kilograms per hectare. So that shows that, and yet the nutrients are getting depleted. So because the soils we have been doing agriculture for centuries, and so now we have to use fertilizers so we can boost productivity. So if a young man knows that if I'm going to get 2.8 tons of maize from an acre, why should I go into agriculture? It doesn't make sense. So then 2, information. If we want to boost agriculture productivity, we must ensure that young people have access to information about better farming practices, about varieties of seeds, about how to use fertilizers. So that information is not available to young people, especially in rural areas, because internet penetration is still low. So you have a situation whereby 81% of smallholder farmers have no access to extension services.
Are there no extension services?
81% don't have access to extension services. The extension worker to farmer ratio currently from the Ministry of Agriculture, which I don't believe actually it's true, but we give them the benefit of doubt, it's one extension service provider to 1,800 farmers. The ideal is 1 extension service provider to 500 farmers. Now, that extension gap leaves the farmers in darkness. So they don't know which improved seeds to use. They don't know how much fertilizers to use. They don't know how to use the fertilizers. They don't know which fertilizers are counterfeit. So we have a situation where farmers lose over $22 million in Uganda every single year because of counterfeit agricultural inputs on the market. So when young people get to know all of those, you have every reason not to go into agriculture. It makes sense. So unless you fix those structural problems and make it easier for the farmers to access credit, make it easier for the farmers to have access to information so they know what to grow and when to grow it. We have climate change, the weather is changing. So this season you expect it's going to rain and doesn't rain, and the farmers are making losses. And so when I make a loss, do you expect me to go back to the same thing if when I can sell land and buy border? So it makes sense why young people are leaving rural areas to go to urban areas to look for opportunities, greener pasture. So until we look at the structural problems that are affecting agriculture productivity, that is making agriculture not profitable, and then we fix them, you will not need sensitization of young people to go into agriculture. They will simply rush there. And you'll have almost all young people finishing university and rushing to villages because there is gold. And so we shall go and extract that gold and have good lives.
Okay. Allow me go to Spark. That seems not to see the gold elsewhere. But to insist on the agriculture sector. So you have heard, and we are now getting a sense of where we are with our food systems. And he has constantly talked about structural challenges, and he has mentioned some. But as you who is on ground, I would like you to tell us more about this. What are some of these structural challenges that maybe later we can now discuss how they can be dealt with? And since you are an initiative that seeks to promote innovation and tap into the energies of young people, what innovations are there already that are seeking to deal with some of those structural challenges? So you tell us the structural challenges you've met in the field, and what innovations, for example, if I'm an investor out there, already exist that we can invest in.
Thank you so much. Like my brother talked about the structural problems, yes, that is true, they exist. These youth, or even not even the youth, the people that are engaged in the agricultural sector, they do not have land, which is a major factor of production. These agricultural inputs, they are not accessible to everyone, the fertilizers and the improved seeds. So you find someone, like he said, you cannot plant maize that has been harvested a previous season and expect good yields. You cannot. You have to get improved yields. And then, like my other brother talked about the money that has been given to these people in the villages, all the incentives, all the agricultural inputs, they are not advised on how to use them. For example, you give someone the seeds, yes, you give them the fertilizers, but they are not trained on how to use them. They will not get the best out of them. For example, you cannot give someone maize seeds and you do not tell them when best to plant them, which agronomic practices you need for them to get better yields, and then you expect that person to get good yields. And of course, after that season, if they do not get what they expected, they will not go back. So as Spark Agro Initiatives, that is how we came in to bridge this gap. We have a few innovations that we've come up with. Like we are trying to reach these youth. We are trying to see how few projects in the agriculture sector interconnect so that we reduce on the effects of climate change or the greenhouse gas emissions. For example, if I'm to give you an example, yeah. the best organic manure now is rabbit manure. But how many people are rearing rabbits? Very few of them. Yet you can...
We have some deserters here. Yes.
Exactly. The rabbit manure is very good. It doesn't contribute to these greenhouse gas emissions that are a problem in the current situation. But very few people know about them. And then even the few that have reared them do not know what to do to get good yields out of them. They do not have access to the market. So they will also not invest much in them. Then maybe we have like reaching out to people to sensitize them.
So what is the innovation? What is the innovation there?
It is
in the rabbit example.
In the rabbit example, the innovation is you use. First of all, these rabbits do not need a lot of space. Since we've realized we do not have land, we cannot sit and fold ourselves and say no, we will not do farming because we need to eat. So rabbits need a very small portion of land for you to rear them. They produce at a very high rate. A rabbit can give birth 10 times a year.
Yeah, in Uganda here we say if someone produces so much, you say azalanga kamyu.
Exactly.
So
that's
that
very
makes
right.
sense. Yes.
And then contributing to the food systems, like we said, we need to eat healthy. The rabbit meat is very good. It is white meat. So it even contributes less to the carbon footprints. So the innovation is that it is tackling the land problem. It is tackling the problem of not having enough financial funds, because really you do not need too much to invest in a rabbit project. And then we are also looking at the effect of the project to the climate change. Yes.
Okay. Any other innovation?
Maybe one that is about sensitizing people, like forming groups within the youth. We form a group, you pay a very small subscription fee, and then us as an initiative, it is our responsibility to come and visit your farm, to come and give you knowledge that you would not get from anywhere else. We tell you, we advise you, say we test your soil, we tell you can do this crop, and then we do for you a cost-benefit analysis. What will you get out of it? If you invest 1 million, how much will you get out of it in this particular, in a particular period of time? Exactly.
Okay, thank you very much. I will now go back to the lawyer. You posed so many questions and threw them to me. Now I want to bring them back to you. Part of what you said is that for you, when you're discussing food systems, the issue is actually deeper than just food or agriculture. You extended it to land, you extended it to the laws, you brought it to the politics, basically. And so we would like you to answer your own questions. For example, the question of land. What are you saying? Are you saying government should expropriate people's land and redistribute it? Or what reforms are you suggesting? So if you're talking about policies and laws, which policies are those, and what changes need to be made? Good enough we have a honorable member of parliament here, so you can be sure he raised on a matter of national importance. It makes sense. Yes.
Thank you so much. I think one of the key denominator here, which we agree on, is that there are structural issues that are hampering agricultural systems and the agriculture sector as a whole. If they are structural, then they need a structural remedy.
Yes.
They need a structural remedy. And to be sincere is the structural remedy highly relies on the political will. We had granaries some time back in Uganda. Actually, we had a time in our society where we had, at every harvest, particular foods would go preserved for the
seed. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And you realize that over time, all those have collapsed, are collapsing, or they are not highly effective as they used to be.
Maybe the food system is moving from traditional to modern. You want me to have a granary?
But you know, you do not jump. That even when we are moving from traditional to modern, you can have a large-scale granary at that point. Highly technological and modern to the present day. The issues today we are experiencing when our neighbors in Kenya say, do not bring your maize. Your maize is not up to standard. It has toxins. Those things should make us reflect. What are we not doing right? What do we need to change structurally? And government has to be deliberate on this matter. For example, I want to give you an example. I want to bring an example of when there were issues in that side of Kabale. I think in the 2000s, about land fragmentation and farming on hills.
Yes.
And all that. And you remember how government intensely educated farmers and gave farmers more incentives on how to sustainably carry out agriculture in those steep and slopey areas. That can be done even here. Today, if government put enough incentives of people who have big chunks of land and say, how can we help you? Not in terms of we are taking over your land, we are giving it to an investor to plant sugar canes. You get. And government says, how can we help you develop your land? They make sure that extension services are available, credit is available. I mean, they conduct soil samples and soil testing. You know, they make these things easier, and the advisory is on point. And it's honest, because at the moment, I want to tell you what is happening. Today, if a person came and tells you, I want to help you make sure that you plant food crops, the first thing a person will think is that they want to steal my land.
Trust.
So we have, trust is broken already at this point. But that does not mean that it cannot be rebuilt. But it needs serious political will, and it needs honest, an honest spirit.
The challenge I'm having with your suggestion is I can't. How do I measure that political will, and how do I measure seriousness? Because they'll tell you they are doing that. There's Operation Wealth Creation to extend capital, hold it. There's narrow, there is nudge to doing a lot of research
I was going
in
there.
Kawanda and all that. There's an entire ministry with different state ministries and a whole infrastructure.
You see, them being available does not in any way correspond with the effectiveness.
And they are very busy. I tell you.
Them being available and being very busy, as you're saying, does not in any way imply that they are going to have the best output. Let us, in diagonizing this,
Yes.
is that we had NADS, popularized word Operation Wealth Creation. We have now a Myoga. But all these, what is the actual intent? Is it to better agriculture, or they are political patronage tools?
Well, you said agriculture is politics, so
Yeah, so the problem is that the politics that has been played with these very many programs is not to better our culture and boost production, go into agro-processing and all that. They are actually political tools that, campaign, name it, they are all political. They are all political statements, by the way. They are all political statements. We declare them, we start implementing them, then we start fixing them. And that is not the way to solve structural problems. With the structural problems, you do not gamble. It might not actually be a 5-year political term agenda. It can be a 10 years. It can be a 15 years. But now we go on to patronage tools, campaign statements, and later they are crafted into a little bit of policy, and amidst the way management becomes a problem, before you know the army takes over, before you know the army is not doing it right, before you know another comes in.
Are you in a veiled way saying the structural solutions cannot come with the current leadership?
I am saying that from the experience we are having now,
Yes.
is that the structural problems cannot be effectively solved in the
next
current
to you
structure.
is a man in a very yellow T-shirt, and so I will, since yellow speaks to the political will, in the country, I come to you, Honorable Odoi. And structures. In your submission, you said there's need to organize farmers, give them information, and I was just thinking, are you going to do that as an MP? Who is supposed to do this? Is it Spark Agro Initiatives to do this? Because there's a full government, there are development sectors, there are investors, and earlier on I had put to Mutesi the question about cooperatives and circles, because in my view, looking at some economies like China, I think that those are some of the structures that societies use to transform the food systems and that value chain, because we are talking access to inputs. The conversation has not yet come up, but I know it's coming, about access to the market and value addition, following through the value chain. Where is the place of the conversation about cooperatives and village banks and value addition initiatives, cottages in the communities and all that? Is this something you think could work from what you're suggesting, that we go to the community, or what structure do you envision?
Well, my suggestion for the approach for me should be holistic. The whole conversation cannot be left entirely on the shoulders of government. But also, in a layman's definition of government, we all know that this conversation should be embraced. If the government has come up with programs, projects, policies, I would then challenge myself. I would challenge my brother Ivan. I would challenge you, my brother Matanda. I would challenge her, Mutesi, I would challenge my brother Uhuru, I would challenge her that apart from criticizing, talking about symptoms in the aftermath, what have we individually done? Have we taken time to say, okay, government has brought this program, Emioga. What is needed? Because I can tell you, there are programs that came before when I was in law school second year. The Youth Fund project was there.
Capital Venture?
No, Youth Fund, the one that was in Centenary Bank and DFCO Bank. Yes. The requirements were very stringent. But I went, and I was given a note with the requirements. I went back and mobilized a few individuals. Of course, several of them could not buy the idea, but there are a few who bought the idea. And then we realized there was need to incorporate an entity. And they needed a bit of experience in that field that you want money for.
Are you sure? Did you still go in a yellow T-shirt like today?
No, I was not in any form of leadership. I was purely student. I was not even in the universal student leadership. I was simply a young man hustling to survive. So I got my colleagues, we incorporated a company, and we went. We got the money, though we did not get the match that we wanted. The maximum was 25 million, and according to the bank, we qualified for 20. We got that 20, added on our small saving, and invested it in what we wanted. We bought a truck for waste management because we were using bicycles and motorcycles. And that was a great boost for us. But the majority of the people I had conversation with would say, no, the requirements are too much. You need a company, you need this one, you need someone to sign for you. So you realize that whereas the requirements are very stringent, but if you go back and really scrutinize the whole project, you find that a committed few actually qualify, and if the resources or the projects are adhered to, they succeed. Now, gone are the days when you need tens of acres of land for you to do commercial farming. We are now talking of modern farming. I want to challenge us as a team here to be the promoters of this. I know very well where you come from, my brother Ivan. You can't fail to afford maybe 2 or 3 acres or 4 acres of land.
He's a farmer by choice, maybe he's already doing
yes, now you too. Now the modern farming, it is us, especially the enlightened youth of today.
White collar.
And also the leaders. We've gone to school, we have our papers. Let's go down and show our people that actually this is within reach. Let's try and do our part. Let's combine our voices and put government to task. It is by doing the little we can that we can say, let's have a conversation. Government, you've done this, but through our experience, we now confirm if you bend this through this, I think it will serve the greater purpose.
So my question to you was, you proposed that there is a need to take information down there to mobilize and organize. So my question was, which structure can be used? And so far, you have given an example of us and others becoming models to serve as an example. Are there any other ways or structures?
Yeah, government should be deliberate to recruit professionals who have the knowledge, the skill, the experience in implementing the modern farming techniques. This personnel should be taken within our communities, say at parish level. I can give you an example. Parish now has come with the government has come with the parish model development program. And we all realize that in most of our parishes, we are actually not having the parish chiefs. Now you find that whereas this project ordinarily is meant to serve the greater purpose of our society, the greater populace of our society, but the much needed skilled, experienced, trained, technical person who's supposed to manage this at the parish model are non-existent. So, but because we the leaders have made a bit of noise, we have pushed the government. I've been reading adverts, like my district where I come from, Tororo. I read this very week, yesterday, there was an advert calling for, they are recruiting over 120 parish chiefs. So leaders should be accountable. Government should ensure the technical persons needed for this are deliberately recruited, they are facilitated with the tools of trade needed to achieve this. Then our people, the country is actually gifted differently. When you go to area of Bugisu and Sesebei, Bugisu, there's a bit of tourism and also general agriculture. When you go to Sebei, there's also a bit of tourism. You see a lot of sports activities. All the medals we won actually came from that sub-region. If you go to northern Uganda, there's a lot of artisanship. If you go to western Uganda, there's a lot of animal production. Now, government should be deliberate. It shouldn't be uniform that this program is boom for the country. It should be deliberate that if an area like Bukedi, they have established their niche in maybe maize farming, let's address this. What could be their challenges? Let's try and address this and help them. If you go to Bugiso, there's a lot of tourism vis-a-vis agriculture.
I've had some people like Dr. Bedwan can call that zoning.
Yes, you can call it zoning.
But we had it. We had it during the Obote time, and from what I know now, is that all government ranches are now private property, almost. So I mean, these things were here, but somehow.
That was still on the floor. And allow me, don't build on my point. My argument is, we as leaders, we as the young people of this country have a task. Matters that matter to the youth should be handled in a way that matter to them. We can deliberately push and demand from government that we, the people of Western Uganda, by and large, this is our niche.
Who is we in this case?
Us.
As a population?
As the young people, the youth leaders, everywhere, everyone, the civil society, the private practitioners, the senior leaders, we should embrace this. It is not a one-man's task.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, back to you, Oliver. I could read from your submission that you said whereas there are youth, there are young women, and you ably shared with us their challenges. They engage in production, but they don't own the means of production.
Yes.
And owning means of production, owning capital in a capitalistic system takes initiative. Maybe each owns according to their ability. So what are you saying? What should we do? Expropriate men's land and give it to women? Or what can change in the law? And I can tell you that our law has progressively been supporting women. There have been changes in the law of inheritance. There have been changes in tenure systems. There are efforts to have land registered and all that. And yeah, so where's the problem and what can be done in regard to women especially?
Much as lot has been put, laws have been put in place, but they remain shelved. In shelves, they are not implemented. We shall talk about the laws. We all know defilement. The laws are very clear, but we have the biggest number of child mothers. We have a 28-year-old grandmother. We all know that. By the time someone is 28 years and they are a grandmother, that's defilement, right? And society has learned how to live with it. First of all, we have strong cultural, religious beliefs that actually even the people are supposed to implement these laws. They believe in these cultures much more than they believe in these laws. that you're going to a police person whose mother is a child mother to arrest you, to report how you've been, your child is being...
Whose wife, not even.
Exactly, whose wife is a child wife, I should call that. So we should look at this, how our laws should break down the strong cultural, religious institution that is failing us to implement these laws that however much we have beautiful laws, very beautiful, even some people are exporting them to their countries and they're making wonders in the other countries, but us here, they remain in the shelves. I'll give an example of what you've talked about. You're talking about how women, this, that. Trust me, you're going to the bank, this women fund, they'll tell you we need, he's talked about the fund, the capital venture fund. They'll first of all ask you for a title. We have a lot of bureaucracies in these laws that hinders us, even as women, that it makes it worse for us. That they'll tell you, I want a title, I want a guarantor, I want ABCD. A title, first of all, as a woman in this country, it's the land ownership. Why are you going to get land? First of all, you're born being prepared to be someone's wife. You're not born being prepared to be you. You're born to be prepared to be a wife. Even at home, they'll tell you, you who'll marry you who does this. No one tells you that.
That's wrong.
Very wrong. That they are not telling you who will make you a director of a company. They're like, you who'll marry you doesn't respect men. Like really, they raise you as someone's property or someone's subordinate. So at the end of the day, our children or us as girls, it takes a lot to come out there and say, no, I am coming the space which is more of males and taking up this. But again, you have these things that keep pulling you back, hindrances that keep pulling you back. You want to go and get money. I'll go back to that when we talk about other things. When you want to get money, these loans that are put in the bank, they'll tell you, bring a land title. Which land you don't own? First of all, your parents raised you. You're not even a heir of your father's land. Even if your father is dead and they left, he said in his will that my daughter should take this land. Somewhere your uncle will come and say, these girls are not supposed to take this land. He will take ownership. So at the end of the day, you are left helpless. Even if the government comes and says, these women should do this and this, these hindrances, cultural norms and values that are more stronger than our laws, they will hinder you and you will not benefit from these laws. So the women, as the subsistence farmers, as a breadwinners in most families, they still go through a lot of hindrances to achieve this, that government needs to come and we overcome these cultural norms and values.
How government seems to be willing to do that. So, for example, when it comes to the money extended to them and they're asking for titles and a guarantor, of course you don't expect money to just be dished out. There has to be... So what can be done? What can replace that security, for example?
Well, I believe that we need to engage the institutions in society that are supposed to be engaged, and government is overlooking them all the time. The cultural institutions, we have the traditional leaders, we have the traditional chiefs, leaders in our societies that government keeps on overlooking all the time. And these are the very strong institutions. We have institutions like the church, the mosque. We need to go back and we involve these people and we talk to them about how good it is to empower the women, how good it is to let women own certain things. That at the end of the day, a man is a bread, but a woman in a home is the one who knows how someone ate, how they slept, how the amount of food we need to consume in a family. But if they are kept on locked back, that's why you're going to have the vicious circle of poverty. We are not moving. A woman, as a man, you will work, but at the end of the day, whatever you feel like you're pouring water in a basket, everything is consumed because you don't know quantities that are needed. You don't know anything. You're just blind. You're just blindly doing things without knowing. The woman who knows details, the nitty-gritties of a family, is left behind.
Okay, thank you very much, Oliver. Mr. Sserubiri, we are now moving towards the end of this conversation, but we'd like to engage another gear. When you look at the theme for this year's International Youth Day, whereas we are discussing food systems, the theme actually says improving food systems. And the improvement is anchored on youth innovativeness. So talking innovations now, going to innovations and ICT. From what I see, when I look around, I see people still using hose. You have already told us about uptake for fertilizers and all these things. Is there any innovation happening in this country? Are the young people in Uganda innovative? And I know you're an engineer in another world. Are our universities producing any innovations, or are people in the communities producing any innovations? If they are, where are they and how can they be supported? If they are not, where is the problem? And still, how can it be tackled?
Okay, I think my response will mostly be based on the question that my brother, Honorable Benard, posed. That, okay, government has a role to play, but what are we doing in our individual capacities to also see that we can supplement on what government maybe is doing, assuming it's doing something. So, yes, I agree. When we are a liberal economy, so they say, that means demand shapes supply, or supply sometimes also creates demand. So here, in the business perspective, wherever there is a problem, there is an opportunity. Even if it's war, when there is war, there are many people who are making money. So there is a problem, and we have all agreed that there is a problem. And so that means there are opportunities. But now that's where the private sector comes in. But of course, even for private sector to come in, then the government also has a role to play to ensure that the playing field is fair, to ensure that the environment also enables the private sector to take advantage of the opportunities that are being created by the problems existing. So I talked about the structural challenges that are within the agriculture sector, and I will be able to respond to my brother what is happening. And maybe he can take the conversation forward at higher levels of government, maybe in parliament. So one, these are the structural challenges for me that I see are preventing young people from engaging in agriculture and that are keeping the agricultural sector backward. So one, we have the issue of credit accessibility. And in this capacity, I will not be speaking as a CEO of Cabral Tech, but as I will take on the position of a spokesperson of the entire ecosystem, the technology ecosystem in Uganda. So when we look at the credit accessibility, how do we ensure that farmers have access to credit so they can invest in improved seeds, invest in fertilizers and mechanized agriculture? There are many young people who have come up with innovations. For example, in the space of credit accessibility, we have Agric. Agric is a startup in the agriculture space that is ensuring that farmers have access to credit. In the same sector, we have Farmnera. Farmnera ensures that farmers have access to quick credit at affordable rates. So, and there are others. There is smart money in the Rwenzori region that is also an electronic money issuer, but that has created a mobile money product that is tailored to the agriculture sector such that they can enable farmers transact cashlessly, credit score them, and have them access credit. So in the credit sector, there are many innovations that have come up, championed by young people who are trying to develop solutions to address some of these structural problems. And then when it comes to, say, extension services, how do we ensure that these young people have access to information? How do we ensure that they have access to better farming practices? There are many also innovation in that space. We have Mulimisa. They are using a simple phone whereby farmers can simply text their challenge, and then there is an agronomist who attends to their queries. So, and then there is also Cabral Tech that also runs a farmers call center that enables farmers to simply call in and then talk to an agronomist, and then the agronomist is able to diagnose their challenges or even make recommendations to them. So to bridge the extension gap, there are many, even Spark Agro Initiative is also in the same space of ensuring that farmers have access to information on weather forecast, on price information, market information, and then better farming practices. There are many young people who are coming up with all these innovations. Even when it comes to market linkage, which is also the third structural challenge, that yes, I've got credit. Yes, I've got credit from the bank or from a fintech or from an innovator. And then, yes, when I get credit, then how do I take advantage of it? Then there is someone who is providing you with extension services, advisory service, so you know how better you can invest the loan you have got. And then after growing, where am I going to sell? So then we have the challenge of market linkages. We don't have organized market systems that can ensure that these farmers, you aggregate the supply and then be able to link them to the produce buyer and also help them make the value chain transparent such that the middlemen don't take advantage of them to exploit them when it comes to the market. So there are many innovations young people are also coming up with to address that. Agric has partnered with different processors to ensure that farmers have access to market. Cabral Tech also works with different produce buyers to ensure that when farmers call through the call center that I have maize and I'm stuck, then there is a trader we know, and then we match them so the farmer has access to market. And then also there is Farmnera that also does the same. And then there are all of these innovations that are trying to solve these structural challenges that we talked about. But here is the challenge. So I've answered my brother Bernard that actually young people are doing something. And I've given him examples of young people who are trying to do ABCD. But here is the challenge. The government has an opportunity to hit multiple birds with one stone. One, on the other hand, you have a problem to fix in agriculture. But on the other hand, you have innovations that can also be a driver of the economy. As I said in my introduction, that the internet economy is projected to reach $712 billion in 2050 and to reach $180 billion in 2025. That itself is an opportunity. And there are countries that are positioning themselves to take advantage of that economy, to do that while they are dealing with the structural problems in health, in agriculture, then these innovations themselves can become drivers of the economy. So we have an opportunity to build the next Facebook, to build the next Google, to build the next PayPal by nurturing young people, supporting them to deal with the society problem that government is grappling with. But what's the challenge? You have young people who are waking up to solve these problems, but you have an environment that is opposing them. You have an environment that's not favorable for them. You have all these regulations that are coming up to take them backward. Even when they are making 2 steps forward, you are pushing them to make again 5 steps backwards. So there is a need to create an environment that nurtures innovation, that supports innovators. That you have to know that what is your age. If I can have an innovative society of young people who are solving problems but building companies, then work with them. Create incentives for them. There is no reason as to why you come up with the National Payments Act and you tell an innovator, for example, Farmnera has a wallet where farmers can pay for inputs cashlessly. And that means Farmnera becomes a payment system that farmers can use to pay for inputs. Now, by farmers paying for inputs, then the farmers can be credit scored because you know their economic behavior, you know their financial history and how they transact. So Farmnera will not need a woman who is doing agriculture to have a land title like what my sister is talking about. Because Farmnera has alternative models of credit scoring the farmer without asking for land title. And so that solution is life-changing. But then you require Farmnera to get a license from Bank of Uganda, which is good, which is okay, because the sector must be regulated. But then you require Farmnera as the initial stage to get a liquidity asset of 100 million Uganda shillings. Farmnera is raising capital to scale. But you are telling Farmnera that capital you are raising, give us liquidity of 100 million, we take it to Bank of Uganda as collateral, as liquidity asset. Now, you have smart money in Rwenzori region, issuing electronic money, but now you are categorizing them together with the telecom companies, and you are telling them that you must pay liquidity asset of 10 billion. So at the end of the day, as these young people are trying everything possible to see that they push these innovations forward, you are bringing regulation that push them backwards.
Possible to stop them.
So
stop
now,
them.
There are countries, for example, Nigeria, the president of Nigeria is working with innovators to come up with a startup bill. And there are many countries all over the world that are positioning themselves to take advantage of the opportunities created by the digital economy. So when you look at your innovators as your savior in this age, then you'll win. So that's why you find that because there is willingness in the leadership in Nigeria, Nigeria attracted investment of $370 million in 2020. Kenya attracted $305 million in 2020. Do you know what Uganda attracted? $11 million. So you can see that there are countries that are making deliberate efforts to position themselves for the digital economy. $305 million entered the Kenyan economy. $307 million entered the Nigerian economy. $111 million entered the Ghanaian economy. And we simply got peanut of $11.3 million. And even Rwanda raised more investment than us. Even when we call it a smaller country with smaller population compared to ours, but it's positioning itself. It raised $11.6 million, $300,000 above Uganda. Now, so it's not by accident. The leadership is taking deliberate efforts to see that that happens. There are countries like Israel, it has what they call the Angels Law. So the Angels Law, they enacted it in 2016, such that they can finance tech companies that are engaged in research and development. So you find that most of the research and development projects are expensive. So Israel reasoned that if a company is engaged in research and development and its expenditure, 70% of it goes to research and development, then we are going to create incentives for the investors such that they can invest money in those companies and we give them substantial tax benefits. So these are all deliberate efforts. But on the other hand, for you, what you do, you simply frustrate. So you find innovators who cannot even afford to pay rent. And you are telling them, raise 100 million if you want to take advantage of the payment space. What you are simply saying, let multinationals come from abroad where they can get interest rate of 2% on loans and invest in Uganda because they can raise liquidity asset. So you are creating an environment where the entire economy is going to be absorbed by multinationals because the innovators cannot afford to operate in this space. So though we are trying, but the environment is not fair for innovators. And we must do everything possible to see that we create a favorable environment. And these are the conversations that must happen at National Youth Council. These are the conversations that must happen in Parliament. These are the conversations we must have. Not to discuss whether to have National Youth whether to hold council on 11th August, not to discuss whether the 500 million given every quarter to NYC can be used to cater for council. We must be looking at the problems of young people. We must be looking at positioning our young people, those in the innovation space. This is your goal. This is the opportunity you have. How do you harness that opportunity? How do you create all of these incentives such that you can empower more young people to enter the space and solve the structural problem that you have grappled with?
You almost got me there. The passion had arrested me, and I forgot about the time. But thank you very much. Now, unfortunately, we have to come to the end of this show, and each one of us is going to have about a minute to make a parting shot. It can be a way forward. It can be some pain you have carried about this topic, starting with the Honorable.
Thank you so very much. I want to get direct to the good views that my brother brought forward. But just, I think, a few months back in this very country, we know that close to millions of dollars was lost in the business of Bitcoin. Now, countries, governments also have cardinal role to protect its citizens. That's why we must adhere to regulations. You can't just let it be open. You have to protect the market, you have to protect the consumers. Because if you don't do that, then even our uninformed farmers, they will take advantage of them. That is where the uninformed farmer will buy bad seeds, wrong fertilizers, because after all, it is not regulated. Now, on the issue of our young people, innovators, the requirement of 100 million at Bank of Uganda, why don't we embrace consortium? If you have capacity to raise 30 million, Bwowe can raise 20, he can raise 20, I can raise 30. We are all innovators. What is wrong if our intention is not selfish, that it must be one person to go ahead? Why don't we now go for a consortium and build capacity? We've seen entities, even Microsoft, even Facebook. If you read the story very well, they came and organized as innovators and came up with one big innovation, and they have beaten the whole world. So my advice is, as young innovators, if the demand is too high, we can still beat the government. Let's come up as a team, put our resources together, the mind together, we shall meet the requirement and we shall succeed.
So the conversation is getting hot at the end, and I fear we may have to we may have to come back. But okay, just 10 seconds. Then he makes his parting shot in 30, and we do the round and leave.
Yes, I agree that we need regulation, and I started with that. We actually need regulation. We need to regulate technology. We need to regulate innovations. We have to protect the financial sector. And all countries are doing so, but you don't, and the consumers. So you don't regulate by killing. One, yes, regulate. Because all countries are regulating their sectors, but actually, he will tell you that there are many startups that are getting out of business because they cannot. The issue of consortium does not work with this new law. It doesn't. It's not. They are not looking for
which new law?
The National Payment Systems Act 2020. Which became operational this year. It does not. That does not work of consortium to raise funds together and then get a license. You have to go as an individual company too.
When you're a consortium, you don't go individually. You agree and form one entity, and you front that entity.
No, so maybe also on the issue. This is what I would advise.
Signal that from the technical team that our systems are time compliant. So we are short of time, but we can come back here to exhaust this conversation on innovations and the regulatory framework. So I request that we make parting shots. Yes, and then we shall resume, particularly on this conversation on innovations and regulation. But you learned.
Okay, thank you so much. It has been a wonderful discussion, I can say. And I think we must have many of these conversations. You see, the space is more occupied with the political conversations. Yes, my brother Bwowe says it's also political, but then by political I mean the partisan politics. And then such conversations that push the country forward have less space, especially in our media space. So it is a good conversation. And I would conclude by saying we have a population to feed. We have a population in Africa that will be 2.5 billion in 2050, and we have to feed it. Even in Uganda, yes, you call Uganda the food basket of East Africa, but that means East Africa has no basket, because President Museveni always jokes the issue of dwarfs competing. It means we don't have a food basket. If this is the food basket, as I said, we get 28% of the estimated yield. So this is the food basket. That means it's like a child who got 20 aggregates. It's a first grade, but yet the potential was 8 in 8. Yes. And yet you have another child who got 32, and you will celebrate because he lived to his potential. This one did not. So finally, I would say, yes, we must create a platform where we can engage, have these conversations, bring the private sector, bring the leaders, and then we see how these ideas can now be taken up at higher levels of government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ivan, less than a minute.
Thank you so much. We have discussed, and me, I still hold my view that the matter of food and agriculture is political and therefore needs political action. So this message goes out to youth leaders and the young people and government. Stop joking. Stop joking over things. We need conference this, conference that. Table things that matter to us. Honorable, I'm also speaking directly to you.
Yes, sir.
These are the actual things that matter. Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development, and Minister of Agriculture, Minister of ICT. This is the actual deal. Or else our survival is at risk. We need to be hands-on and do politics the proper way.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bwowe. Yes, Honorable.
As a country, in our subsistence production, we still have surplus. That's why we have read everywhere. Matoke is going to west in western Uganda. Where we come from in the east, maize, rice, the price has gone so down. No buyers. In our subsistence production, we still have a surplus. It means we have huge potential as a country. The government should be deliberate in their operations. Parliament should be deliberate in policy formulation to ensure the excess surplus goods, food produced, is stored well in silos. There should be deliberate effort by government to create market externally, such that the surplus of our production is exported. The young people, let's embrace this. The future is bright within agriculture.
Thank you very much, Honorable Oliver.
Thank you so much, my brother and fellow panelists. Thank you so much for such brilliant ideas. Mine will go back to the women, to the young woman, and to the being that we are the biggest, youth are the biggest majority, then women are the biggest population compared to men. I think we need to empower more women, and we need to have laws that are going to favor them, since they're the ones that involve a lot in subsistence agriculture, look after home, and you know they say family is the smallest unit of society.
Yes.
Society starts from family. So let's go back to the family and empower this person who looks after the family, and have laws at the national level that are going to favor her, that it will also help us boost our agriculture economy, and also have a happy nation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Now you know, Spark Agro Initiatives has the opportunity to close this panel.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, my fellow panelists, for the discussion. It has been very fruitful. To me, it still keeps us, the youth. We need to keep the energy. We need to feed our country. And we call upon the stakeholders, mainly the government and the parliament, to pass laws that are favorable for us, that are favorable for our innovations, so that we keep in the food system, we keep producing food for the country, as well as being mindful of the environment, keeping healthy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My panel have been a wonderful panel with great insights, with great passion and clash points. And as usual, at the Youth Roundtable, our role is to ensure that the demographic dividend of youth in Uganda is harvested before it turns into a disaster. So you don't expect less. Every week, we just keep getting better. We ask you to engage in these conversations, make comments on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, ask questions, make suggestions on how we can make this conversation better. And if you're out there and you need a platform to be part of these conversations, contact us. We are happy to support you. For God and my country, see you next week.